Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and your local witch next door. And today I'm talking about the Eight of Swords. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. For monthly hangouts, tarot Q&As, and more, you can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, check out my Let's Talk Tarot meetup group for the latest event postings. And if you're not local to my area, you can join me for a virtual tarot card creation event on Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'll give you a list of recommended supplies, we'll meet online, and I'll walk you through the process of creating your own cards. Get the date on your calendar now and be on the lookout for the sign-up page coming soon. If you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, and more. If you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationships therapist seeing clients virtually all over Washington State. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients who might be struggling with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex. Go ahead and book a free consultation now to make sure we're a good fit to work together. You can find the links for any of these offers and the show notes are on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards that I pull. All right, welcome to Season 8 and Episode 101. This season, I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords, going through each card one per episode. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you should check those out. Season 1 was all about tarot basics. Seasons 2 and 3, I went through all the major arcana cards and the 4 suits. Season 4, I went through tarot and pop culture. Season 5, I talked tarot by going through 13 common tarot spreads. Season 6 was all about the Suit of Wands. Season 7, the Suit of Pentacles. And like I said, we're in Season 8 here where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the whole Suit of Swords, you can check out episode 37. And today I'm talking about the Eight of Swords. So, common images or symbols associated with the card are like confinement or restriction of some kind. There is this sort of like cage of your own making vibe to the card. So sometimes whatever that might look like. So those are some of the common ones. When I'm looking at my Anima Mundi tarot deck by Megan Wywer-Wendon, there are, again, 8 swords. They're all pointed down like they're embedded in something. And there's an upside down bat that is all folded up like as if it's ready for sleep at night. And the imagery on the card is very, like the back of the card's dark, black basically. We see maybe a little bit of like cloud cover. We see the bat, and then the swords themselves are very shiny and like standing out a lot. I was going to look in the deck guidebook to see. Okay, so it says the Eight of Swords, a flying fox is actually what it is. So, which I think is like maybe a vampire bat. It says you may feel restricted and powerless, but these are things that you have imposed upon yourself. You may have to face a difficult decision, but you must release the constraints before doing so. Be honest with yourself. So it says upright, it's about self-imprisonment, isolation, restriction, and being powerless. So again, there is that sort of like, okay, we have a lone bat hanging upside down in the dark, sort of surrounded by maybe, right, all of its metaphorical anxieties or overthinking or restrictions that it's put on itself. In the Goddess of Love Tarot deck by Gabriella Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu, there's a lot going on this Eight of Swords card. So there's 4 swords at the top and then 4 at the bottom, and they're actually sort of like mirrored where the pointed ends are towards each other. There are like ruby, the gemstone in an oval, and then we have like teardrops of some other kind of jewel on either side, sort of in this, again, like mirrored way. We have a skull in the middle, like a human skull, and then we have like vines sort of wrapping around, and then we also have a green snake in the middle that's also like sort of intertwining in this way. In the back of or like in the background, we see a pink sky and like white fluffy clouds. It says the Eight of Swords is not an easy card because it's one of spiritual and mental bondage. If there was a card to sum up anxiety or the feelings of your mind working against you, it's this one. You feel trapped in the pain with no way to escape, but remember that the swords are in the realm of the mind. The struggle may not be literal, but something you've thought yourself into. Take off the blindfold of your own making. Often the pain you're inflicting on yourself, even if it's just because you're ignoring the bigger picture, is worse than the thing itself. Step out of automated modes of loving and own your power, even if this means admitting your mistakes, pain, and weaknesses. You have the ability to soften, to honor the currents of love and lust within you, and to step into a new reality. The affirmation associated with this card says, I see the truth with honesty, and I open my heart to rebirth. And from what I understand, right now, astrologically, Jupiter is present, and it's just really making me think about this rebirth aspect of like astrological things that are going on right now. I'm recording this on May 17th, 2025. I think the Jupiter stuff's happening today. Um, and it says the journal question, what am I ready to witness in my love and sex life so I can claim my power? So there is this sort of like, right, looking at our own patterns, looking at our own power, thinking about that self-inflicted pain. And again, right, pain in this sense can be sort of metaphorical. It can be like, oh, I can't do that until I do this. It's making me think about like the idea as we enter summer in the Northern Hemisphere of like, oh, I have to lose weight to be in a swimsuit for the summer, or sort of like, oh, I have to look a certain way, do a certain thing, have a certain amount of money before I can allow myself to feel pleasure or again go swimming or to kind of do these different things. And this card is telling us that that is like, again, a cage of our own making and that it's not really helping us right now, even though, right, we sometimes think that by restricting or constraining ourselves, by just being harder on ourselves, that will force us to behave or sort of end up in this certain way. But usually, right, like the end of the Goddess of Love tarot card said, like, it's actually about softening and being nicer to ourselves, being kind, being self-loving, allowing like flexibility, letting go of rigidity, and all these different things that really actually help us move forward. And lastly, we're looking at the Sacerobito Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington. There's a person depicted on this card. They sort of have their eyes closed, like they almost look like they're in pain. We see their head and their shoulders, and we see these ropes like around their neck. It could be, again, like some literal bondage. It could be like some self-tying. And then we see, again, there's sort of very dark background, black, and then almost like black clouds, and then behind the person, like directly, almost in this like halo or surrounding them, is lighter colored, but we see the tips of the swords like piercing through the black clouds. So it's a very, again, sort of like intense image. And it says this card's all about victimization, powerlessness, and discomfort. You're feeling trapped, restricted, and fenced in, being overwhelmed, lacking direction, and confusion. feeling victimized and powerless. The card shows a man bound and surrounded by swords. His eyes are closed and he looks uncomfortable. He feels weak and believes in his powerlessness. Swords, symbolizing intellect, show that the man's discomfort is self-imposed. Recognize that the restrictions are of your creation and therefore under your control. He can use his mental swords or intellect to cut the binds, right? Because again, we can think of swords as an intense weapon, but they can also be a tool, right, to cut through things. Like, yeah, I guess like on the Goddess of Love card, there are these sort of vines, like swords can be used to, right, cut through the brush or cut through different, right, things that we think might be holding us back in that way. If we look at the Library of Esoterica tarot book by Taschen, they talk about that this card's all about battling with oneself and self-deprecation. The Eight of Swords symbolizes feeling powerless and warns us of being bound or blinded by our own lack of self-honesty. In the Tarot and Astrology book by Karine Kenner, she talks about that this card's associated with Jupiter and Gemini. It says the first decan of Gemini is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion. Normally, you'd probably think this would be a good thing. In theory, Jupiter could give us airy, intellectual, Gemini, all the room it needs to let its mind roam free. Gemini, however, doesn't need any help coming up with new ideas. In fact, Gemini already has more interest than they could ever fully explore, and multiplying these options won't make life any easier. If you've ever seen a Gemini surrounded by a half-done projects, unable to focus long enough to finish one before moving on to the next, you'll understand. An endless array of openings and opportunities isn't necessarily liberating. The Eight of Swords illustrates the problem. The person on the card is paralyzed by possibility, surrounded by a multitude of options, but you can't see the forest for the trees. She's trapped in a mental prison of her own making. She is stuck in the middle of Jupiter's wheel of fortune. She's alone, too. She's separated from her companion on the Lover's card, and she doesn't have her Gemini soulmate along to keep her company. As it turns out, Jupiter is in detriment in Gemini. The planet is 180 degrees from its natural home in the zodiac, so it's forced to work with energies that are radically different than its own. The Golden Dawn designers of this card called Jupiter in Gemini the Lord of Shortened Force, because it illustrates the crippling effect of too much of a good thing. In a tarot reading, the Eight of Swords often represents entrapment. It can also symbolize the process of initiation and the recognition and reawakening that occur when you're forced to assess your situation and focus on your goals. So interesting that we're getting Gemini, which is also, right, an air sign. We're shortly going to be entering Gemini season, coming up, I think, in 3 days as I'm recording this. But also we get Jupiter, right, which I said astrologically is important right now as well. So it's just really sort of reinforcing this idea here. In the Fearless Tarot book by Elia Adam, they talk about that the Eight of Swords is about freedom from fear that binds and blinds. It paralyzes us as we wait for bad things to come to pass, right? Fear can blind us, causing us to not see the present. The Eight of Swords symbolizes fear that relies on past evidence to validate it. Something traumatic happened to the person on the card. She was blindfolded, bound up, and abandoned. The people who brought her to this place are gone. Her fear that she is worthless has convinced her that all remains is to wait for the tide to come and swallow her whole. She has been shunned. Has a traumatic experience from your past made you feel damaged or worthless? Is fear blinding and binding you somehow? Are you so focused on potential catastrophes that you can't see your many opportunities? Do you rationalize your fears using past traumas to validate their existence? The Eight of Swords uses gray imagery that makes the woman's situation look hopeless and bleak. But always with the tarot, you must look closer. She can free herself so easily. Wait, what? She could use any of the abandoned swords that flank her to cut the ties around her hands. With her hands free, she could remove the blindfold. Her legs obviously work so she could run for safety. Perhaps she could seek sanctuary in the large castle behind her. Why is she not focused on fighting for herself and her survival? Why is she accepting the shame cast on her by others without fighting it? it's because she really believes she is worthless. Feelings of worthlessness are lies that will keep you scared and bound. Today, you must see your worth. If you're having trouble seeing it, look at the people who love you the most. How would they feel without you in their lives? How sad would they be if they never experienced the special moments you made together? Reflect on your irreplaceable light today. Your light is so special, so uniquely you. In the whole cosmos, there's only one like it. You are a survivor, you are worthy, and it's time to turn the tide. It's a very powerful ending coming from this. And lastly, in the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dorr, she speaks about, again, like this idea of being scared of things and how it affects and constricts our right range of motion, our ability to kind of be, flexible. Oftentimes you might feel you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Those are two sets of unpleasant feelings, one on either side you're having to choose between. When you're feeling trapped like this, it can seem as if there's no way to win, since no matter which direction you go, there is pain. Life is like that sometimes, but here's a thing to consider. Generally, there will be one set of feelings in a situation like this that you're more comfortable with. For example, for the person who fears intimacy, loneliness isn't pleasant, but it feels safe to a degree because it's familiar. If the person chooses the route of loneliness, their growth is limited because they're not going anywhere they haven't already been. The set of feelings in the other direction might involve contact with old wounds around closeness and self-worth, and seeing how those wounds come up in close relationships. The second route may be more terrifying, understandably, but at least there is space to grow there and room for new learning. And it's always good to remember that in these situations, you have a choice. You get to decide what getting unstuck is worth to you. You get to choose what, when, and how you're willing to feel what needs to be felt in order for movement to happen. All right, so let's dive in and see what the cards have to say today on this topic. I am pulling from The Citadel, a fantasy oracle by Fen Inkwright. All right, I'm going to give it a quick shuffle. As I do so, I'm going to be thinking about this idea of how can we, cut the binds that hold us back. How do we see where we're being self-restricted and, make choices that are maybe different from ones we've made in the past? How do we make the hard choice sometimes when we're presented with lots of possibilities and go towards the thing that is sometimes our greatest fear? How do we, get out of this entanglement that perhaps we've put ourselves into? Wow, we got the Witch, experimentation and rebellion. Okay, let's see here. I have never seen this card before. I love it. It's got the, the moon phases across it. It also gives very, I think it's Six of Pentacles vibes. Anyway, the Witch. The scent of new fruit hangs in the air, bright and refreshing. A pestle grinds in its bowl, the sound of stone on stone, a soothing repetition. Just as the first plants of spring burst forth from cracks between the paving stones, so too does the witch push their boundaries in search of new magics. Knowledge exists only to be expanded upon, reshaped and reformed to a new and exciting purpose. The world is full of old wisdom, but some advice is too outdated for the modern lives we live now. Tradition is a set of guides, not a strict rule book. If you find you're being held back by how you should approach a situation, break from tradition and forge your own route. Surround yourself with others who think outside the box and embrace a new tradition. So it sounds like that's exactly what we need to do to break free of these binds, is think outside of the box, find people that also do that, Surround ourselves with the kind of life or people that we want to be. And also, thinking about that, okay, yes, maybe it's different from what I've historically done or what is seen as okay or the easy normal route to go. And this card's telling us, like, experiment, right? Rebel. See how it feels to do something outside the norm. And you can always make different choices in the future. But I suspect that once we do so, right, we see that it's actually not that scary and it feels really good to be our authentic selves. So links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.